Okay, but since Passover is coming up, I want to focus here on 5 big ideas from this foundational festival. I call it a foundational festival because indeed it is the foundation of our nation, in which we came out of Egypt after 210 years of slavery and finally became a free people that was directed and molded by the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai that occurred shortly after the Grand Exodus. I want to begin by sharing this big idea, speaking of freedom, because many people would think that free means free of rules, free of anything that might be imposing. Well, that's not freedom. Freedom without structure is usually chaos. It's not freedom. True freedom is when it has purpose and direction. Then I can truly be free. You know, Mark Twain famously said that some people are so open-minded that their brains spill out. You ever heard of that expression? Sometimes you're so free that you lose any sense of meaning, any brains. But real freedom is when I'm anchored in principles and values, and with them I'm fueled towards specific direction and purpose. And that's why every single time that Moses went to Pharaoh and asked Pharaoh to let my people go, which has become the slogan for Soviet Jewry 30, 40 years ago, while they were still under the reigns of communism, he didn't just say to him, let my people go, shalach et ami, but he said to him, shalach et ami ve'yavduni, let my people go so that they can serve God. To just let my people go won't give them freedom. It will give them confusion. Take a slave and put him out of prison. He might be physically free, but spiritually, mentally, he's still going to be as imprisoned as before. To really make a person free internally, you need to have some sort of purpose. And therefore, again, the line of Moses, let my people go so that they can serve God. Shalach et ami ve'yavduni. But that's the big idea. Now, that's what we are celebrating on Passover. And I want to share with you really just 5 insights into Passover, into the Seder of Passover, which I hope will give us some meaning as we become free. Insight number 1 goes to the very name of Passover and of Egypt too, because we came out of Egypt after all. Does anyone want to read? The holiday of Passover. Let's go. Commemorating the Exodus. Anyone? Please, go for it, Sarah.
Why celebrate the Exodus? This psychological lessons. Why are we celebrating an event that occurred over 30 years ago? The holiday of Pesach, commemorating the Exodus of the Jewish people from the land of Egypt, also reflects the liberation of the soul from the psychological and the emotional constraints represented by Egypt. What is Egypt? The Hebrew term for Egypt, Mizraim, may be translated as inhibitions or restrictions. All of us are various inner and outer inhibitions that stifle our growth and prevent us from maximizing our potentials. We may be paralyzed by fear, insecurity, shame, guilt, doubts, conflicts, resentment, codependency, and addictions. We may be stuck in relationships, personal or at work, that are not good for us, but we are paralyzed to do anything about it. Conversely, we may be stuck in our inability to build a relationship. We may be lacking the ability to love, to dream, to cry, and to let go of our defenses. Or we may be enslaved in unhealthy urges and feelings of envy, animosity, and bitterness. We may be too afraid to be honest with ourselves and with others, to look at ourselves in the mirror and make the hard choices we have to make. So here is the suggestion for the Seder night. Tonight, think of one particular thing in your life which is holding you back from greatness and how you can overcome it. Then make the resolution to do one daring thing that will help you get out of this inhibiting Egypt. It may be as simple as making that telephone call to that frightens you, confronting that person that scares you, changing that habit, jumping into the project, taking that risk. Whatever it may be, you are the one who knows best. And tonight you owe it to yourself, the gift of liberation.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, especially with that accent. That's just amazing. Thank you, Sarah. but it's proper English, friends. I'm sorry. I know we're in America, but this is proper English. But That's really the idea that comes from those two names of Passover. First, the name Passover. Many explain, and Passover was named Passover not just because of the 10th plague, right? Everyone says that the word Passover speaks of God sending his angel of death that passed over the homes of the Jews when he saw that blood on the doorpost, and rather went to the homes of the Egyptians in order to kill their firstborns. But why would we call an entire festival after just the 10th plague? Call it after the first plague, call it blood then. Why Passover? But the idea is because it's not just named after the 10th plague. It's named also after the idea, the fundamental idea of Passover, which is to pass over our own limitations. And that's where the word Mitzrayim comes in. Mitzrayim means limits. Egypt means limits, restrictions, or what was the other word here? Inhibitions. That's what it means. And on Passover, we are asked to break those limits, to pass over those limitations, and then we can truly be free. By the way, I would recommend everyone, that's why we do it in our house. But to begin your Seder by asking everyone to pick just one thing that may limit them. Again, it may be like you just read, a telephone call that you have to make to repair a broken relationship. Or it could be a bad habit that you have. Anything that you take upon yourself to say, you know what, this has been limiting me now, and I'm going to pass over that limit. I'm going to break it. I'm going to come out of my own Egypt, my own Mitzrayim, my own inhibition, and then we can truly taste the taste of freedom. But that's really the big idea of Passover more than any other idea. Yes, Hannah.
No, I used to remember, I never heard that, that's a real good point. But I used to hear because the Jews passed over, like people that had this adult.
Yeah, the angel of death passed over their homes, right?
So that was another reason. But this is
Right, that's what I was saying. That's what most people say. That's because of the 10th plague. But it doesn't make sense. Why name a whole festival after one of the 10 plagues? Why not name it locust? Why not name it darkness, like the 9th plague, right? But the idea is because that word represents really what the fundamental idea of Passover is. We have to pass over our own limits and restrictions to be free. Yeah. No, thank you. And I would say that this is very much connected also to what it means to be a Jew, because remember, on Passover, we are forming ourselves as a nation. And in many ways, our raison d'etre has been to break limits, to break the limits of ourselves, but also to break the limits of this world. My beloved Rabbi Dean Stanzas would often say that we have to remember that we are in this world, but we're not of this world. We are better than this world. We are stronger than this world. The world might come up with all sorts of restrictions and challenges, but we have the power within to overcome them if we can only connect to our divine soul, to our infinite potential. And in many ways, if you think about this, this is what we've done throughout history. I know during every Passover Seder, you have that Uncle Harry who will tell you about the Nobel Prize winners and how great Jews are and how special we are, right? Do you have an uncle like that too? Well, I have an uncle like that. And I'm sure every Jewish family has an uncle, an aunt, or cousin like that. But in many ways, that's because we've never accepted the status quo. Status quo. Things can be done better. This world can be brighter. Yes, we can contribute and really make a difference. Or in the words of Steve Jobs, the only people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. We've had that craziness of breaking limits. Good craziness, not bad craziness, good craziness. And that's what has made us into the Jewish nation right from the get-go. We've believed in our ability to pass over, to break the Mitzrayims, and therefore, I think we've survived all these years and thrived. So that's idea number one. Idea number two. This second idea speaks of the three items we must have at every Passover Seder according to Jewish law. The items are wine, matzah, and maror. Maror, the bitter herbs. I don't know what you used. Some use horseradish, some use lettuce. Even though I don't think lettuce is so bitter. Maybe the inside of the lettuce, out of the root of the lettuce is a little bit bitter. Cilantro, thank you. Onions pretty bitter, yeah. Anyway, but these are the three items you need. Why? Again, what's the life lesson in this? Does anyone want to read item number 2? Please, Jackie, go for it. That's fine. From an English accent to an Israeli accent, why not?
The three most important ingredients at the Seder table are the wine, matzah, and maror, bitter herbs. For these three items, capture the three foundational ideas that can allow us to set ourselves free. The first step is wine. Wine has incredible power. When wine enters, secrets come out.
Right.
Then that happens.
Has anyone experienced that? You don't have to tell me. Go ahead.
Wine represents the secret in us, for wine itself is a secret. It is initially hidden and concealed within the grape, and it takes much labor to extract them from the source. The grapes have to be crushed and the wine to ferment. Wine, an intoxicating beverage that is at first concealed within the grape, represents the deeply concealed powerful forces lingering within the human psyche.
Right. So that's one item. And again, I think one of the prerequisites of becoming free, going back to that theme, is to be like wine, to ensure that we are honest with ourselves and we dig inwards further and further until we find that divine soul and give it some expression, just like wine does with this human psyche. Okay, go ahead. The first step, fine, is setting yourself free.
The first step is setting yourself free, is realizing how much more there is to you than what meets the eye. You must recognize your potential, what you are really meant to be, what you are capable of becoming for you out of this change.
Right. I don't know if you've ever heard of Marianne Williamson, but she has many books. That one of them, she says that the biggest fear that human beings have is not the fear of failure, but it's the fear of success. And that is that what would we do if we were indeed able to break these limits, to become successful, each in our own way, obviously. Success has many colors and shades. What will we do? Maybe it would take us out of our comfort zone, it will lead us to places that are unknown, and therefore we're afraid of them. And in many ways, at Passover, we're asked to get rid of that fear of becoming successful and to break those limits, even if we don't know exactly how that next level will look like. But still, we are capable of much more than we sometimes think we are. And all we have to do is try, break those chains and set ourselves free. You know, of that cute story about the camel in the zoo. I ever share with you that story? There was a camel in the zoo that was approached by its baby, and they're both in the zoo in this cage. And the baby camel says, "Mommy, why do we have such long eyelashes?" And the mother camel says, "That's because when we walk in the desert for miles and miles, sometimes there are sandstorms, and these eyelashes are there to protect our eyes from the sandstorms." She says, "Okay, good. Now, Mommy, why do we have such big, large feet?" And that's because, again, when we walk in the desert for miles and miles and miles, sometimes we need those feet to maintain our stability and to overcome all these thorns and other things that may be in the ground. Okay, good. And Mommy, why do we have these humps on our back? Just like the Camelback Mountain here. Why do we have these humps on the back? Well, that's because when we walk in the right, we have to store water. Sometimes we go without water for weeks and weeks. So we need to be able to hydrate ourselves. And then the baby camel tells the mother camel, "Well, Mommy, if we have all these gifts, what are we doing stuck in a cage in some zoo here?" And in many ways, that's life's question. If you have all these gifts within, why are you stuck in your own self-made cage in some zoo? You have to actualize them. And the first step doing so is looking at words, being like inwards, being like wine. You have to recognize your potential and then do something about it. God gave you long eyelashes for a reason. I mean, maybe that's good for camels, not for human beings, but still, God gave you all sorts of skills and talents for a reason. That's one. Two, this comes together with step two. You can continue, Jackie, or anyone else, Sarah, anyone else. B, at the bottom of the page here. Please, Julie, go for it.
Representing the bitterness caused by slavery. You have to remember how dysfunctional the slavery is in order to be dispersed towards liberation. And to the afterlife, the first darkness is what is in his life. For a Jew not to be fully in sync with his or her inner soul, with the essence of existence, is slavery. It creates a void, an inner emptiness, a lack of real joy. That is the maror. That is what allows us and encourages us to grow in our lives as humans and as Jews.
Right. And that's why bitterness is sometimes good. That's what maror means. I know we try and get rid of bitterness and get rid of stress and we do all sorts of things to do that. But we have to remember a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of stress is actually very good because it enables us to continue to grow, to continue to break limits, the mitzrayim of our lives, instead of sinking into our comfort zones. When there's no bitterness and there's no stress, then we sink. But almost like Albert Einstein said, that life is like riding a bicycle. Do you know that one? The only way to maintain your balance is by by going forward. And in many ways, when you have no stress and your bitterness, you stay still. And that's when the bicycle falls. And that's what bitterness does. It doesn't give us that sense of ultimate rest. We're bitter. And it's fine to be bitter. In order for us to grow, we have to be bitter. That's step number one. So not only do we have to dig deep inside, but once we find that soul, wine, right, that allows us to find that soul, then we have to constantly be on the go, on the path of growth. And that's with that bitterness that doesn't allow us to just settle. Or as Rabbi Steinsaltz would often say, if you think you've arrived, you're lost. That's 2. 3, then we have the critical step of matzah. This is like a GPS for life, friends. Step 1, step 2, now what's step 3? Please, go ahead.
Then we have the critical step of matzah. We eat the matzah, says the Haggadah, because the Jews did not have time to wait till the dough tested. They rushed out of Egypt. I want to ask you, they waited for 210 years. They could not have waited another few hours.
Right.
What was the rush? The answer is beautiful. The greatest enemy to setting yourself free is delaying things, hard decisions, and bad moves. The message of matzah is when it comes to setting yourself free, you have no time to wait, even an extra 18 minutes. Do it now. Make that call now. Send that email now. Make that move now. Set up that meeting now. Make that decision now. Start the new behavior now. Confront the situation now. Start doing it now. Or as the Lubavitcher Rebbe put it, anything worth doing is worth doing now.
Right, very good. And the words speak for themselves, but that's step 3. Once again, you've discovered your infinite potential, your soul, and you are on this path of growth with that bitterness that shakes you up, makes you grow. And you also have to understand that every opportunity that comes your way should be seized now, immediately. Don't delay things. One of the great teachings of the ethics of our fathers is Al tagil shefne shema lo tipane, which means don't say when the day will come, I will seize it, because that day may never come. So do it now. Anything worth doing is worth doing now. Yes, please, Julie.
Well, if these 3 things, why don't we just do them at Passover then? You know,
We should do them every festival. Yeah.
All the time, if these are the most important 3 things.
Yeah.
Why is it just for such a short, limited time?
Right. I think on Passover, it's just a reminder. We should do it all the time. You're right. Absolutely right. We need a refresher from time to time. What?
You should have matzah all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we should have matzah and wine. Yeah, that's right. Go for it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if that's what's going to give you a reminder, then yes, absolutely. Then do it all the time. But these, again, are just reminders, right? The mode should exist all the time. I mean, I know people drink wine every day, but not for that reason. So if it doesn't serve as a reminder, maybe don't do it. But otherwise, if it's going to serve as a reminder, or eating matzah or maror, then do it. Absolutely. That's right. 30 days before Passover, you should refrain from eating matzah. so that when matzah comes on Passover, you have some appetite towards it. You do it with desire. Yeah, you're right. Maybe during those 30 days, refrain from matzah. Not wine. You can have wine every day if you want. Or if you're French, you can have wine 3 times a day. Yeah. A good point. Okay, so that's these are the 3 necessary ingredients to every Seder, which again represent 3 necessary steps for living a life of purpose. Number 3, blunt his teeth. This comes from a very peculiar story or episode or text that we recite on during the Passover Seder in the Haggadah. Does anyone want to read? Speaks of, right? Let me just bring you to that episode, to that story in the Haggadah. In the Haggadah, we speak of the 4 sons, 4 children, right? The wise, the wicked, the innocent one, Tom, and the one that doesn't even know how to ask. And by the way, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would add that there's a 5th son, the son that doesn't even know that there's anything happening. He's not even there to not know how to ask. He's not there altogether. He's absent completely. And it's our duty in many ways to invite that 5th son, to bring him into the fold. But speaking of those 4 sons, let's focus on the question of son number 2, the wicked one. What does the rebellious child say? Does anyone want to read? And now, Daniela, that's amazing. From English to Israeli to American to Italian. See how... Andiamo. Right.
There is in truth a different message. It is sort of the expression answer the person do not answer. There is what we see and hear. And the other person and there is what we can see. Your child will be yelling, throwing things, or giving systems, and acting from a insincerity. You should be disciplined. So what is going on in the circus? These tensions about you see the more we can perceive, the more we can go beneath the surface, the closer we are to the end. When we hear the voice of a rebellious child, we often get carried away in what he says instead of looking beyond the word to what is truly feeling. So how are we to respond? Says the Haggadah, break his teeth when entering into dialogue. Let this not be about teeth versus teeth, or and teeth who screams louder wins. Shower him or her with unconditional love. Simply overwhelm him or her with enormous affection and acceptance until they see that there is no such a thing as an outside. You're waiting in heaven.
Right. So I think this is perhaps one of the greatest secrets to successful relationships, that you speak to the question, to the person, not to the question of the person. You speak to the internal making of the person, not to his external making. And what we see here in the question or in the response to the question of the wicked son is that sometimes the wicked son comes from a perspective of teeth. There's something that is happening within. Maybe he doesn't even know what is happening, something that's very much aggravating him. And therefore he comes with these teeth, with these sharp teeth, and he exhibits a very maybe violent behavior or violent speech at least. The ultimate educator is the one that judges that type of child not by his sharp teeth, by his externalities, but rather by trying to figure out why is he like this? What is hiding behind this behavior? What is the inner making of that child that is behaving in such a way? Understanding again the person, not just what the person says. And that's what we do. We say blunt his teeth, not that you have to be a Muhammad Ali now. You have to go and box his teeth out. But you are saying that I'm not relating to the teeth. That's out of my sight. I want to go much deeper. I want to go to the soul of the person and understand really what he or she is going through. That's the ultimate educator. How often do we dismiss people just because of their teeth? Think about this. Just because of the way they appear, instead of truly learning them. You know, when Moses was asked to pick for himself a successor, Joshua, he had only one job description. And that job description was going to lead him to that ultimate leader for the Jewish people after his death. What was the ultimate job? What was the one-line job description that God gave him? God told Moses, go find a person that has the ability, lahaloch, as it says, keneged rucho shel kol echad ve'echad, that has the ability to relate to the spirit in each and every person. Not to the person, to the spirit in each and every person. Keneged rucho shel kol echad ve'echad. Because if you can relate to the spirit, then you can be a leader. Then you can be a parent. Then you can be an educator. Then you can be an influencer in life. Otherwise, just go sit behind a desk and work on computers all day long, because you've missed the point. And that's really what this is teaching us. In many ways, it's very much connected to freedom. In order to be free, in order to allow others to become free, we have to relate to the persons, not to the questions. To the soul, not to the teeth. That's the big idea here. Okay. Fine. Idea number 4. Let's go. Not the cookie cutter model. Anyone? Please, Linda, go for it. Right.
There are different types of children with different personalities, skills, challenges, and gifts. You must find the proper words to speak to each one. You must discover the proper mechanisms in which to penetrate each one.
Right. That's very much connected to what we just said, right? Everyone has a different personality, and you have to be able to relate to everyone's unique personality. Look, I have 10 children, so I know the wisdom of this teaching a lot. But everyone, we would think, right? You would think, people would think that if you have more than 5 children, or at least 10, then 2 of them would be alike, 3 of them would be alike. After all, they come from the same parents. No, I can tell you from experience, it's not at all like that. Every child is different, to the point that today, out of Boston, you can actually test the uniqueness of the personality of your child at the age of 1 day old. There's a doctor in town, and I've mentioned this in the past, Dr. Ron Melmed. He's a member here. It's just lovely. He runs the Melmed Center. But he was telling me about the study of how, for example, you can test the temper of your child at the age of 1 day old. How so? You take a 1 day old baby and you hold him, and then you push his head a little bit backwards. Now, the immediate reaction of every baby is that they start moving their arms like this, right? Well, if you push a baby's head that's just 1 day old backwards, and then he pushes his arms this way many times, then you know that you have a hot-tempered baby that might be a little more emotional when he grows up than the average. No, embrace it. But it just comes to show you, as he often says, that people don't come from us. Children don't come from us. They come through us. Their personality is already built before they even came down to this world. And our task as parents, or as people who mingle in society, is to be able to relate to everyone according to who they uniquely are. Not to what you think they are, not to a prototype of human beings, but to who they individually and uniquely are. That's 1. 2, despite these 4 being so different, why don't you continue, Linda? Go for it.
They may differ in so many years, but what unites them is that they are children. You must and can be here for each other.
Right, very good. Okay, and then 3. I think that speaks for itself. Yeah, go for it. Very good. And, it reminds me of one of the great stories. But my beloved rabbi, again, Adin Steinsaltz, says how someone once came to him and said, Rabbi, the prayer book is quite boring. After all, we say the same prayers each and every day, and it could get very, very boring. And Rabbi Steinsaltz responded so sharply. He said, you're right. You do repeat the same prayers each and every day. But you yourself are supposed to change and grow every day. So the person saying them every day is not the same person every day. You're a different person today as you were yesterday. And therefore you relate to the same text differently because you're a different person today than you were yesterday. And then he went on to say, and he said, and if you don't change, then you're boring. Not the prayers are boring. You're the boring person. But in many ways, this is very true to how we relate to Torah. There are texts. And those texts are supposed to relate to us each and every day where we are. Sometimes it's a question of how to find that path of the Torah or that word of the Torah that does trigger something in me. But it's there. And because we change every day, then we have to look at the Torah also in different perspectives each and every day. But this is the idea of why the Haggadah speaks to all 4 children, because it relates to all 4 of them, regardless of who they are. That's regarding that. These are the 3 lessons about those that story in the Haggadah of those 4 sons. Let's go to number 5. Last and not least, one more story that I think from the Haggadah that I think speaks about freedom also altogether, and one of the important ingredients in life. Dayenu. Does anyone want to sing it for us, by the way? I know you all know it. As a warm-up for number 5 here? No? Okay. Fine. Dayenu, a famous song, a blueprint for life. It seems to be, who wants to read? Please, Daniela. Right. Right. I want to share with you the story of my dear friend, Elisha Meidan, who about 2 months ago was severely injured in Gaza, as he and his very good friend were entering a tunnel to explore if there were any terrorists and any bombs. And unfortunately, as upon entry, it was booby-trapped. Upon entry, it exploded. 3 of his good friends died on the spot. He was severely injured, and the paramedics even pronounced him dead, but they decided nonetheless to ship him to a local hospital, to take him via helicopter, and then they were able to revive him, and miraculously he recovered, not before, both of his legs were recently amputated. And he's still now undergoing aggressive physical therapy in Tel HaShomer in Israel. But I've spoken to him multiple times. I studied with him in school, Elisha Meidan, and he's my age. He didn't have to go and enlist, but when the war broke out, he went and joined his unit, even though he's over age. We're old now, 45 years old. That's old today. But I'm joking. But for the army, it's old, I guess. But he was telling me, look, I asked him, how do you smile? How do you maintain a positive attitude? How can you even go on with life when you're missing two legs and your life has changed drastically? And he responded just that. I can focus on what I'm missing. I can focus on what I have. I still have my health. I still have my family. I still have, therefore, my happiness. And that's what I focus on, and therefore I smile. And I said to myself, well, if he can do that, and he's missing two legs, are we not to do that? Thank God we are blessed in so many ways, and yet in life, we always focus on what we're missing. But the secret of being truly free, the secret of Passover, the secret of life altogether is dayenu. To say, you know what I have is enough. Thank you, Hashem. I'm so appreciative of all of these little blessings. Everything can be taken away from me, as Viktor Frankl says, but not my attitude to life. My attitude is an attitude of focusing on what I have and the blessings that God has given me. Then I can be happy, and then I can be free.